is there's nothing actually to refute, because it turns out there's nothing more than an assertion, as far as we can judge.
Yeah, but
right? All that Stark does is say, well, here's a way you could get those numbers, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing John will concede. He keeps saying he got his numbers from somewhere else, but won't provide the somewhere else.
Yeah. Whether Stark, once again, has been successfully refuted by Josh is irrelevant.
I don't understand maybe I'm just lost, but like, if it's not about this issue of Stark and their hypothesis about growth rates increasing over a certain amount of time that produces like 20-some million Christians, and that it's a 40% increase over a number of decades, what's the underlying issue, John, that you're trying to debate if it's not that?
Okay, Josh came in unsolicited and came with the claim. I challenged the claim. I asked him to defend his claim, and
he couldn't.
And he didn't. Okay, and he didn't. And so what I did, maybe by mistake, is to offer, well, Stark has this information. What is your response to that? And then it became a focus on Stark, and my continual plea for him to defend his claim fell on deaf ears because everyone wanted to focus on Stark.
Can you tell me what the claim was that you remember, Josh?
The claim of Josh was such that after the Edict of Milan, and based upon the emperorship of Constantine, these two factors contributed to the rise of Christianity. That's his claim.
yeah, you still want to talk about this, but we're not going to talk about this unless you concede the Stark thing.
Yeah, no, I don't even need to talk about it. So there you go. We can drop it.
Thank God.
Oh,
yeah.
you're tapping out, John?
Yeah, of course he is. This is like day 3.
Oh, you're tapping out, John? Was there last man
Yeah, he's
standing?
tapping out.
What a
Because
surprise.
his weird pride won't allow him just to concede that the Stark thing is,
This is
No, but
actually
I'm so glad that this happened. I'm so glad that this happened, because you guys have all heard him bring up Rodney Stark.
this has been
right,
going on
in the
for more than a
past,
year.
right?
This was the first
You
time.
guys can't even
No,
drop
but it
it
goes back to
yourself.
the Facebook days,
Well, no. I'm saying the first time he met Josh and Kazira, they argued about
Oh,
over a
that's
year.
right,
ago.
yeah.
That's not
This
true.
has been going on.
That's not true.
It is true. It is true, because I'd never met Josh before, and I was impressed with how well he handled you. That was the first time you guys interacted, and it was over a year ago.
Yeah, but this is a great thing now, because now he knows that we know that when he brings up Rodney Stark, it's absolute, right? It's an absolute nothing, right? Because it turns out he can't cite anything that Stark, right, says that shows that there was a steady growth rate, right? There's not a single piece of evidence he can produce, right, from Stark that there was a steady growth rate, right? When his whole claim, right, is that this this idea that Constantine's edict, right, plays the main role in the growth of Christianity in the early centuries, right, is false, right? And he was using Stark to buttress that idea. And now he knows that if he brings that up, people are going to say, where does Stark provide any independent evidence other than a retrojection, from 350 AD, right, that there was a steady growth rate?
What do you think historical evidence is besides?
Yeah, well, hang on, Andre. Just real quickly.
Oh, the idea would be that there's lots of ways you can estimate population, right? One, for instance, is census data, right? But there's also ways that archaeologists do it, right? But John doesn't seem to be able to find anything like that in Rodney Stark, right? And so now when he brings up Rodney Stark's name, we're going to say, oh, is there any census data?
I don't know what your obsession with Stark is, Jack, but...
my obsession with Stark is that you're dishonest.
Unbelievable. And so what I'm trying to
It's
tell you,
unbelievable.
Jack, is that I've been bringing it up for 15 years, Jack. But I've never, and I'm telling you, I've never brought it up in relation to Constantine and the Milan Edict claims. What I have brought it up is respects to claims of childish indoctrination as the cause of Christianity's rise and growth, okay? This is the reason why I brought it up, Jack, that I've always brought it up. And what I was trying to tell Josh was that both cannot be true. You cannot claim a mass adult conversion and claim simultaneously childish indoctrination at the same time. So,
Had you ever
I think you misunderstand why I even bring up Stark. I continue to
He
bring up
does.
Stark
He totally
under
misunderstands.
the claim
They
of
just asked you why you brought up
Have
Stark.
you ever read it, besides looking at the chart that you copy-pasted?
Do you
into
even need to
conversations?
ask that question, Jane? Has John
Well,
Lee ever read a fucking book?
Have you ever read it?
No, wait, do you even need to ask that question, Jane?
I need him to say no.
He's not
I
going to,
haven't
well,
read it.
is he going to say no? I mean, he might, knowing John, he's just going to lie.
Have you read it, John?
Have you?
I have not read it, and I am not
Then what's your
arguing
point?
for or against it. My point is, he brings it up as buttressing his own
notice that he's not
argument, but
answering
he
the
hasn't read
question.
it. He hasn't read it because he didn't know that it was a retrojection, and he didn't know that it was based on Mormonism, the trend of Mormonism and the exponential growth of Mormonism, which Stark cites
You think
in his own
there's
book.
historical evidence besides retrodiction?
He doesn't provide any.
What do you think historical evidence is
He didn't
besides
get to claim that
retrodiction?
there's historical evidence. He was making the
Wait.
claim.
What do you
He
think
was, yes,
is the
that's
difference between retrodiction and just standard historical
Not
evidence?
retrodiction, retrojection.
What is the difference between retrodiction and retrojection?
Why are you even talking about it if you don't know? So dishonest. I just can't believe what a fucking dishonest.
I asked you a question and your answer is why are you even
So
talking
so
about
you don't know you don't even know what I'm talking about when I say retrojection, right? You
That's
want
why
to
I asked
intervene
you to
in the
clarify.
debate.
You can
Just
clarify.
fuck yourself, right? So John, I still don't understand.
Are you going to clarify?
Why did you shut your fucking mouth while I'm talking, asshole?
Oh,
So John, shut your mouth. So
You're
John,
just be dishonest.
shut your mouth while I'm talking.
You shut your mouth.
So John, I don't understand. They asked you a few minutes ago why you brought up Rodney Stark, and now you're saying the reason why you brought up Rodney Stark was because of the issue of adult conversion versus childhood indoctrination.
But that's
Now,
false.
when Jane... Oh, that's false?
Correct. That's not the reason.
That's what you just fucking
No,
said.
that's not what I just said.
He said he brought it up in the past for that
That's
reason.
right, Dan.
No, but he said he brought it up to Josh for that reason.
And I already gave a reason
Oh, well, he did.
for John.
He did bring it up to Josh the very first time they talked, and that was about adult conversion, but he brought up the same study, and that was over a year ago. So you've brought it up to Josh for multiple reasons in multiple different situations.
Yeah. Well, in any case, he brought it up fucking 50 times in the past 2 days, and he insists that it was irrelevant. But it's not irrelevant to me. It's not irrelevant to me because I, right, am not making Josh's argument. If Josh is even making the argument, right? I'm not making that argument, right? What I'm doing, right? The only issue I'm concerned with is whether Rodney Stark provides any evidence, right, to show that Josh's hypothesis is wrong, right?
You're not.
And so therefore, given that concern, I don't know why you're talking while I'm talking, John. Therefore, given that concern, right, it's perfectly relevant for me to ask you, right, whether it's the case that Rodney Stark does provide any such evidence. And as far as we can tell, I don't know why you're talking while I'm talking. As far as I can tell, the answer is he doesn't provide anything, right? Because you can't produce a single piece of evidence, right, that this idea of a steady growth rate is anything more than a retrojection. So I don't know why you keep saying it's irrelevant. It's not relevant to what I'm concerned with, which is to point out that you're completely dishonest, right? And that turned out to be true. So you can say it's irrelevant until the cows come home, right? It's not irrelevant to my question.
Yeah, we don't care about your question, Jack. You might think
it doesn't matter whether you care or not.
Now you're interrupting me.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether you care or not.
You're still interrupting me. And so what I'm trying to say is that Josh made a claim. You don't care about him backing up his claim. Of course not. You care about my response to his claim, and you want to distract from him fulfilling and shouldering his burden of his claim. And my response you want to laser focus on to distract from the fact that he continues to avoid shouldering his burden for his claim that started out unsolicited. He just made the claim, and I happen to be skeptical of that claim and provided possible data points that might refute.
Oh yeah, data points? Oh yeah, what were the fucking data points? So you're so fucking dishonest, right? And then you made another claim. Shut your mouth while I'm talking. And then you made another claim, right, which is that my aim was to distract, right? Are you going to be able to back up that fucking claim?
You're distracting.
Yeah. So I want you to back up that fucking claim now, that was what my aim was. How did you discern that was my aim?
Because your question, right, of whether I support Stark or not is irrelevant because I said that even if he batted it down successfully, we're not going to debate whether he did or not. The question, because that, again, goes down a rabbit hole of him shirking his burden of proof.
Sorry, how is that not consistent with the other hypothesis?
What you're interrupting me, sir.
Yeah, so you're not answering the fucking question.
What I was trying to point out, and what I continually try to point out, is that Josh has made a claim, and he has not backed it up with any sources. I asked him at least 10 times, do you have any sources? And he said something about, well, this 5 to 10% is by memory from somewhere way back when. This is all he said. This is literally all
He
he
was
said.
on his phone.
Wait. John is dodging. John is dodging. Don't.
What I told him was that 5 to 10% in 300 AD is actually the data point that Stark provides in his chart. And so you have done nothing to, at least as far as the data point of 300 AD, have not even challenged that, because your memory actually lines exactly with his numbers. Now, do you have any numbers for 200 AD, 250 AD, 100 AD? And he said no. And so I was asking him, can you provide any evidence that there is some sort of growth of 200% beginning at the 300, whether there's a slow growth of 5 to 10% annually, every decade or so? And he also said no. And so I was simply asking him.
Wait. He's dodging. He's dodging.
Simply asking him, do you have any data that shows a sort of a rapid increase beginning at 300 AD? And he kept avoiding that question.
Yeah. So what was the question that I asked you, John?
It's irrelevant. We don't care.
Yeah. So the reason why you were talking was because I asked you a fucking question, right? Which you fucking dodged. And then when I pointed out that you were dodging, you said I was interrupting you, right? Because all you were doing was fucking dodging. So again, the question is, right, where's the evidence that my aim, right, was to distract? Where's the evidence for that?
Yeah, that's my opinion. I think it's obvious.
Yeah, so you can't fucking back that up, you fucking piece of
I don't need to back it up. That's my
right?
opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know how you'd know his intentions, John.
Yeah, I wonder how you know my intentions when you can't even know your own on your
Whether your
intentions
whether your intentions were to distract or not, it is clear to me that it is a distraction, whether intentional
That's beside
or not.
the point.
Yeah, no, that is
No,
the point.
it's beside the point from my aim, right? My aim was to point out that when you bring up Rodney Stark, right, that is something that was based on nothing, right? Because it became very clear very early on when Josh pointed out that all that seemed to be was a retrojection, right? And there was no independent evidence for the fact that there was no spike. It was very clear that you couldn't produce a single piece of data to show that it was anything other than a retrojection. And I realized, here's the trademark John Lee dishonesty rearing its ugly head, right? And so that became the question that I was interested in.
It is clear that your aim does not involve Josh supporting this claim.
That's right.
Clear.
That's right. I had no interest in that argument. I was interested in pointing out that when you bring up Rodney Stark, right, it was a complete red herring.
There you go. So you have no interest in an atheist making claims and backing them up.
I didn't say that doesn't follow. That's a non sequitur,
So,
John.
You admit Rodney Stark's from scholars. Okay, I posted a link. I actually looked at this yesterday by a work by Thomas Robinson. Now, it's behind a paywall, so I actually pulled the PDF down and I uploaded it to my Google Drive. It reviews the numbers of Rodney Stark's work extensively. If you read the conclusion, I could go through it. It's pretty short, but they question all of Stark's hypotheses, and that he's not really basing his work off of what other people have shown in terms of Christian urbanization, rural Christianity, Jewish networks, that his formula is just a formula he's come up with, and that he, as Jack is saying, he's just kind of come up with this idea, and then he's trying to fit these numbers to it.
That was what Josh said the entire time. He read from Stark's own book where he admitted that much.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's even arguing this.
So in other words, your criticism, Jason, represents a sort of a due diligence as far as Stark is concerned, right? However, what I was trying to tell Josh was that, do you have any evidence, such as like a slow, steady growth of Christianity, and then all of a sudden a spike of Christianity beginning around 300 AD and so forth? That's what I asked him. What he has is raw numbers that of 10 million increase, 20 million increase, right? However, in a parabolic growth, you're going to have crazy numbers like that with the same trajectory of exponential growth. And so I gave examples of Scandinavia in the 17th century. I gave examples of China in the 21st century. And so I said that these are parallel to Stark. I mean, and it's the case that, or not even just Stark, but the rise of Christianity. And so how do you know that is not a representative of steady growth within Christianity without the causation of any head of state, any edict, such as in China, such as in the Nordic countries and so forth. And so he had no response to that whatsoever. He just said,
but the issue is there any independent reason to think that there wasn't a spike, right? Just to say that the growth rate was consistent, right? That there was this massive growth rate that led from 12 people in 33 AD to 25 million in 350 AD, right? As a smooth, right, curve at a very high conversion rate. That's the issue. Is there any independent reason to think that? Maybe there is. I don't know. But you certainly don't seem to be able to produce any evidence to suggest
this
that.
This is incredible. The consideration is there a reason to think there's a gradual growth without a spike? Can you believe the type of reasoning? No. The proper question, is there any reason to believe there's a spike? Not
well, what do you mean by proper question? Proper with respect to what norm?
When he's making the claim, the proper question is there a reason to believe that there's a spike? What I told Josh is if you're able to bring...
That is a proper question, but that's not the question that I'm asking.
I understand. You're not...
Yeah, the question that I'm asking is...
with him backing up. We already understand that, Jack, right?
Yeah.
So you're interrupting me, sir. And so what I was telling Josh was that, Josh, listen, if you are able to bring any type of data that shows a gradual, slow 5-10% increase in Christianity every decade for centuries, and then all of a sudden you get the Council Edict of Milan, and you're able to show an exponential growth of 200% or something like that every 10 years or whatever, then you will have convinced me. I said, are you able to do that? And he just kept avoiding that question.
Well, I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that's true or not. He's not here to defend himself. Other people seem to think that he did provide evidence. Is that right, Jane?
Yeah, he listed off like 5 things.
So John just seems to be. So I'm just going to assume that you're lying, John, because I'm just going to assume that you're lying when you say you didn't provide evidence, because you have a past history of lying about these things, right? Like you've become like a joke on this app for the amount of lies that you tell. So when you say stuff like that, I don't see any reason to believe it, right? And you just keep repeating it. So when Josh comes here again, we'll find out whether he has any independent evidence for his claim, right? But of course, what interests me is the fact that you don't have any reason whatsoever to believe that his hypothesis is false, right? And when you cited Rodney Stark as evidence for that, right, it turned out to be based on nothing. And that's the claim that I'm concerned to press, right? It turns out that as far as we can judge, Stark you certainly aren't able to provide anything in Stark, right? Or even if you are able to do so, you certainly haven't provided anything in Stark, right, to suggest that there was not a spike, right? Because there's no independent evidence that you've adduced, right, from Stark to show that there was a steady growth rate.
So, Jane, in response to what you said, that he listed about 5 things, I just want you to know that it was pulling teeth. After about 10 times I asked him, he came up with those things. However, let me tell you, Jane, that about 4 of those 5 things he did not mention the night before last night. And so that was when the initial conversation happened. He did not elaborate. He did not introduce. He did not elaborate. He didn't do anything for me to inquire about it. What he rattled off, Jane, could have been done overnight or who knows what. I don't know. I'm not going to say. Maybe he had it all the time. But what I can say for certain is that at no point did he even give me the opportunity to question those categories that he talked about, because he didn't talk about them. And I was the one trying to have him talk about them so I could examine it. But then you had this guy running interference about the Stark this and Stark. Oh, we're muting me now?
Yeah, so that's great. So when Josh gets here, we can find out whether he has any evidence to support
we don't know,
his
Jack. We don't know.
hypothesis of the... Yeah, but I'm not, as I told you, right, that wasn't what I was concerned with. What I was concerned was this Rodney Stark stuff, because I've heard you bring it up. I don't know why you're talking while I'm talking. I've heard you bring it up numerous times, right? And, with the Detroiter stuff, right, that turned out seemed to turn out to be a big joke. That you couldn't understand basic statistics. So I got interested when, given that Detroiter seemed to point out that you were misrepresenting statistics. And what a surprise, right? What a surprise that John Lee would turn out to be misrepresenting statistics when, like, Tom Rabbit's, like, whole campaign here is to point out, like, how dishonest you are, right? Which he's been inordinately successful at doing, right? Since every time you say, I didn't make a claim, he goes back and gets a recording of you making the exact claim you denied making, right? It's just become a running joke here, right? So with the Detroiter thing, that was very interesting. Here we have a person, right, who minored in statistics, who, as you're going on crowing about how atheists don't understand the adult conversion thing, Detroiter takes one look at it and says you're misrepresenting the statistics. And I thought, oh, isn't that interesting that a person with a degree in statistics, right, is pointing out that John Lee is misrepresenting statistics. And so then when you were having a conversation with Josh, right, Josh said, oh, doesn't seem like you understand statistics here, John, right? So I got interested in trying to see if we could look into this Rodney Stark thing, since I've heard you invoke that before, right? And so it became clear very early on what the question was that you were dodging, and the question was, where does Rodney Stark show, right, any independent evidence for a steady growth rate other than merely retroject that this is what the growth rate would have to be if it were steady, right, to get to 25 million by 350 AD. And when I saw you dodging that question, right, I was like, okay, here we have a clear example of John Lee dishonesty, and this is going to be great, because if we corner him on this, right, he's not going to be able to bring up Rodney Stark without getting embarrassed in the future. So I made sure that we didn't let you get off the hook on that question, and I pushed it and pushed it and pushed it, and lo and behold, right, it turned out to be completely hollow. So this is just a really great thing now that we've come to the bottom of this, that when you invoke Rodney Stark, right, there isn't any evidence in there whatsoever, right, or at least any that you know of, that shows that there was a steady growth rate, right? So that's great. So we can table this now, and when Josh comes here, right, he can come and defend his hypothesis.
Yeah, so with regard to Rodney Stark, once again, for 15 years or so, I don't know how many, maybe 10 years at least, I've been bringing it up for claims when people paired Richard Dawkins. That was my go-to response, was Stark. And it had to do with childhood indoctrination. And so I'm going to continue to do that because I think that's good enough evidence. Irrespective of whether it's retrojection or not, we see the numbers that are 600%, according to the World Religion Database at Boston University, of the population growth rate. So this much is clear. Now, how that 600% pans out over 3.5 centuries, that's a different question, right? But it still exceeds the population growth rate. That's what I'm concerned about as far as claims of childhood indoctrination. Now, with regard to Detroiter, I'm actually glad that I had a conversation with him in the sense that of where his misunderstanding was when he brought up the Britannica, I guess it was the Britannica source, of total conversions of Christians annually, right? That did not, what he thought I was claiming was that that total conversions of Christians is the result of Christianity's growth. That is not the case in terms of raw numbers. And so what he understood as growth is not what I was understanding as growth, as what the WRD is talking about growth. And the growth is relative to the percentage of the population. That's the growth that we're talking about. Detroiter still even had a difficulty understanding a little bit yesterday that the growth he's talking about are raw numbers. So I told him, listen, Detroiter, you can have 300 million more atheists, or irreligious, I should say, in the world, and still have the percentage go from 16.3% to 13.8%, right, by 2050. That is shrinking, right? That you cannot claim that atheism has grown by 300 million, in a sense that the population has grown by 3 billion, right? And so that is not a growth, is what I was trying to tell Detroiter. And so the growth I was talking about was relative to the population growth rate and the percentage of the population within particular nations. Now, that was information by the WRD. For some reason, he misunderstood it, and he thought he was refuting something I was claiming, and then you jumped on the bandwagon. Fortunately, I was able to revisit that conversation and tell him exactly what growth is, how growth is understood by the WRD.
Yeah, well, I didn't follow that discussion, but Detroiter was getting pretty annoyed with you, so you were presumably being either dishonest or stupid in that discussion, right? But you can take that up with Detroiter when he's here.
Oh yeah, and I just remembered. Yeah, and then he kind of Yeah, he kind of got triggered a little bit. And I think I accused him of pulling a Matt Adams. I forgot about that part of it.